All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you all for showing up this morning. To officially welcome back Kelly Kroskoff as President of Basketball Business Operations for the Indiana.
Nobody expected this. Finally, the Indiana Fever president spoke out loud during the calm portion. The woman in charge of the whole company, her comments not only caused controversy, but they also sparked the entire community of basketball musicians, the truth of what's truly taking place in that franchise for the first time. Politics, pressure, locker room dynamics, music, and the conflict between building a champion and a brand came to light, and all you think you know about Caitlin Clark's situation in Indiana is changed. When you discover the entire tale, now let's go back to the beginning of this story. Indiana was among the least notable. Before Caitlin Clark ever wore a Hoosier uniform, there were teams in every professional basketball league. In 2021, 6 wins. There is talk of 5 wins in 2022 and 13 wins in 2023. For nearly 10 years, they were a joke. Years.no fans, no buzz, no spotlight.no cameras would be present, the crowd weren't filling the seats. The WNBA scene had completely changed, regardless of the Fever. That was the reality. A once proud franchise that into an afterthought, but no one in that front office could have planned what happened, no matter how hard they tried. Things drastically altered when the first overall pick in the 2024 WNBA draft walked into the room. Caitlin Clark did more than just reduce the temperature, she changed the league as a whole. Everywhere she gave a performance, the crowds were completely sold out. Record-breaking TV numbers, jerseys flying off the racks, and an unprecedented media frenzy. Been seen in women's basketball since the beginning of music. To be honest, after all, the company had to produce a choice during that explosion. Would they try to change the direction of the wave? Or take a ride? That's when the whole story starts to get interesting, because many were taken aback by a choice made by the front office. People needed someone at the top who understood exactly what they had: a once-in-a-generation opportunity. Athlete who was revolutionizing women's sports on her own. Kelly Kroskoff was designated as their new president of basketball and business operations. On paper, it made logical. Kroskoff had earlier established the Fever had direct experience with the organization as a member of the team that won the 2012 championship. With all the anticipated enthusiasm, the squad introduced her, but there was something in her message from many people initially disregarded the worries raised by her first press conference, but they would eventually surface months later, to plague the entire business. The warning indicators went unnoticed until it was too late, since they were concealed in plain sight. Everything broke down at this point: Caitlin Clark's injury in July of 2025. A problem with the Fever is absent. Because of a groin issue that has been bothering her for weeks, Clark has only taken part in 11 games this season thus far. Fans are annoyed. The team is close to qualifying for the postseason. The pressure is rising. Amidst all of that, the footage from Kroskoff's initial press conference mysteriously reappears on social media that same day. Media, the internet uncovers something concealed in the October 2024 speech that most people, Kroskoff said, staring straight into the cameras during the press conference, had completely ignored. This is about the Indiana Fever. Yes, Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark are our core players, and we intend to continue adding to them, but I want this team. It just took that to become a national leader and an enduring brand like Apple, or whatever. 5 words, something like Apple. In just a few hours, the video went viral, and its fan base grew rapidly, since it was not a vision that sentence was heard by a lot of individuals. It was a warning. Such a reaction was unprecedented in the Fever front office. In addition to being furious, fans were also well organized, noisy, and difficult to ignore due to what Apple genuinely accomplished. But the analogy to Apple resonated differently. Steve Jobs, one visionary, laid the groundwork for their whole personality, and as soon as he departed, the entire empire nearly collapsed. Consequently, when Clark's supporters heard when the president used that same example, they saw something that appeared to be illuminating. As though Clark was already seen by the organization as an element rather than the main attraction. On social media, one fan replied, "To long-lasting companies that adopt their concepts, Apple became a global icon thanks to Steve Jobs, the company's star and visionary." Another fan also didn't hold back. They assert that when Clark finally determines she's had enough of the Fever will admit that they squandered the best opportunity in the history of women's sports due to the front office dumpster fire. The message boards, comment sections, and replies all reflected the same fundamental feeling: you don't downplay the most important player this squad has ever had, and you continue to pay attention to her. The criticism wasn't simply noise. It was a choice, and someone in that organization became aware of how serious the situation was getting due to Kroskoff's complete. A few hours after the video became viral, the account vanished. Completely absent. Where a social Just a few days before, there was silence rather than a message or an explanation from the media. At this point, it gets even more intricate, because the athletes who actually wear uniforms next to Caitlin Clark every night, the players on the floor, while the front staff was being attacked, they were telling a completely different and much more truthful story. Online, Lexi Hull, one of Clark's closest pals, didn't hold anything when she applied for a Glamour magazine profile. According to Hull, hardly no one had hitherto been willing to wear a Fever outfit. Make public, but everyone in the league was already aware of it, due to the media coverage and the fans. I think there has been some jealousy over the Fever since Caitlin arrived. She took it a step farther and revealed that teams from across the league had been openly debating topics like, "We can't." In their own locker rooms, they allowed the Fever to triumph. For 2 seasons, an unsettling reality has been emerging. Was made clear by Hall's comments. These days, the Fever does more than just play hoops once they get on the floor. A situation where they have been singled out by rival teams because of the players on their roster and because of a single player rather than the performance of the squad. Sophie Cunningham advanced the athlete who made a name for herself as Clark's enforcer on the floor, who made it clear right on that making crude remarks about her friend will have consequences. Had Cunningham asserted that he had already come forward and confirmed what the entire league had been speculating about it before moving to Indiana. When she was still in the locker room, she said, there were explicit conversations about Clark. Phoenix. That competitors weren't just out to win, they were trying to get their point across, the narrative of Clark's physical. Throughout the season, there have been numerous accounts of being targeted and getting an endless welcome to the W moment. The physical play directed against Clark was so intense that even unbiased onlookers were taken aback, and a lot of people were genuinely doubting if, by the time her groin injury interrupted her season, the officiating had sufficiently protected her. After only 13 games, the response was no, according to an increasing proportion of those who were paying close attention. But that was just the beginning, because the first-hand account of what it's like to be Caitlin. All of this was taking place in the public glare, and Clark's coworker was starting to come to light. Additionally, it was not what the reviewers had expected. The narrative that Caitlin Clark's critics presented was simple. Had exerted the greatest pressure. That she created problems in the restroom, the players didn't like her. That no team could withstand the fissures brought on by the fame and attention. September of 2024. In a podcast, Hall of Famer Cheryl Swoops claimed that key members of the Fever were quietly showing their disinterest in going. That the situation around Clark was beyond their capacity. It spread swiftly. As the Fever entered its second season together, it was incorporated into the background noise. Or it was repeated everywhere. Unless, of course, Clark had to make an appearance as a guest on A Different March. Subbard and Diana Taurasi hosted the Madness program. She took it on head-on. She wasn't angry. She didn't behave defensively, she was remarkably calm about it. Basically, you become used to people thinking they know what happens behind closed doors while, in reality, they don't. Furthermore, she was still receiving encouragement from her teammates in that locker room. During the 2025 postseason, Clark's colleagues flooded the floor when she healed from her wounds. After the game, they cut off her interview. They came for her with little notice that nobody had anticipated. When the Fever won the Commissioner Cup, there was genuine celebration in the locker room. Laughing and genuinely happy for one another, players linked in a way that didn't read like an act. This is what the media hasn't yet put together. Caitlin Clark's teammates' opinion of her was never the primary subject of the Fever story. It was about whether the front desk, which oversaw them all, was ready to surround her with the right components and devote all of their attention to the endeavor. The difference is that Boston had a close bond because the links were real on the court level. Aaliyah, alongside Clark, Lexi Hull was cautious. Sophie Cunningham and other new players have not even played a game together. We're gushing about Clark. Michaela Timpson, the rookie who made the final roster, showed genuine appreciation for Clark in a manner that is hard to imitate. Clark made remarks on Instagram after the expansion draft for 2 of her teammates, stating things like, "Cub I love you," for Christy Wallace and "My Aussie for life," for Chloe BBY. These were real friendships and the love wasn't false, but contacts are not enough to win titles. And that was the tension at the heart of it all. The entirety of Kelly Kroskoff's, not just the Apple soundbite, but statements from the October 2024 press conference included something that many people were disregarded in their rush to voice their disapproval. When Krokoff said that she intended to play the long game, the want to be a long-lasting brand, sometimes it takes a generation to advance, she said. And Caitlin Clark was 10 years old in 2012, the year Indiana won its only championship. Maybe the company had been setting the seeds for a 10-year-old who would find inspiration while working for someone else the entire time. In the actions of the Fever at that period, everything depends on how you perceive the actual priorities of the front office. Whether you think that's misdirection or vision, but this is undeniable, because of a brand. Fans who started going to the Fever in 2024 failed to show up, they came because of a player. They drove for hours at a time. The WNBA had never seen payments like the ones they made, the league had never expected. The quantity of viewers of games, additionally, when Clark's ailments kept him from playing, ticket sales dropped. In ways that were measurable, documented, and publicly acknowledged. TV viewership fell, there was no doubting the stark, the harsh truth of Clark's significance to that franchise, but the organization's top leadership continued to send out messages. To the group, the organization, and the brandas, even when the individual receiving all of that attention was in some way. Aside from it, during that news conference, Kroskopf made a statement that was very noteworthy. If you are a smart basketball player and you see how Caitlin Clark plays, you would want to play alongside her, she said. Additionally, since the Fever's recruiting success had quietly evolved into one of the WNBA's most captivating narratives. Even she probably didn't realize at the time how true that turned out to be. To go to Indiana. Players were forced to accept pay cuts. For veterans, the opportunity to play with Clark was the determining factor. Packed stadiums weren't the only places where Clark's fan base existed, players desired to be a part of something more than a normal WNBA season because of the environment it was creating. Despite themselves, the Fever had turned into one of the most desirable places in the league because of a basketball player who made everyone's life better. Her in crowded buildings everywhere she went, not as a result of a marketing plan. Let's go on to 2026 and beyond. The Fever will persist in the future. The franchise lost 2 players in the WNBA expansion draft, Christy Wallace to Toronto, BBY to Portland, Chloe.in her second year. Clark had to contend with a season that was supposed to be her breakthrough. Instead, she only played in 13 games throughout the regular season due to a nightmare of injuries. Despite scoring 16.5 points and 8.5 assists per game, she was selected for the All-Star game. And 5 rebounds during her games, even though she was dressed in civilian clothes and sitting on the sidelines. Still was the focus of the league. The Fever were building a $78 million performance venue underneath it all. That Kroskopf described as the basis for the following generation, even though the concert venue won't open until 2027, is meant to be the kind of home base that attracts elite players for many years to come. The parts are in position. The question is whether those in charge of making decisions above the court are conscious of what they have and if they intend to deal with it before it's too late. The greater truth that underlies all arguments about the Fever's headquarters, every disagreement with Clark's players, and every vehement remark about. In actuality, the stress in the locker room is much simpler than anything else. This team went from winning to losing in just 1 year.